Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at Chapter 5, Biodiversity, Species Interactions, and Population Control. For this chapter, we have 3 sections. And then the first one is how do species interact? And then this part we have done with our nature observation lab, and this part is very basic biology, so I would not talk much on section 1. We're going to mainly focus on section 2 and section 3. So the core case study is southern sea otter, a species in recovery. So these species live in giant kelp forests in shallow waters along parts of the Pacific coast of North America. By the early 1900s, they had been hunted for fur or to protect other shellfish, almost to extinction. So partial recovery since 1977, when they were declared as an endangered species. But think about why do we care about sea otters? Obviously, number one, it's because of our ethics. If a sea otter, if you and I can exist, why they can't, right? And also for tourism dollars, they produce a lot of value when used in tourism. Another reason is they are keystone species. In the absence of sea otters, sea urchins and other kelp-eating species would probably destroy the kelp forest and much of the rich biodiversity they support. So chapter 5, we're going to focus on 2 things. Number 1, how species interact and help control one another's population size. And number 2, how communities and ecosystems respond to changes in environmental conditions. So on the video, we are going to focus the second question more than the first one. So the first section talking about the 5 types of interactions among species when they use their resources, when they control one another's population size. So the 5 we have reviewed through the nature observation lab. So the 5 reactions are competition, predation, parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. Okay, so your job is remember to review the definitions and be able to give examples. One thing you need to know is the most common interactions among the 5 we mentioned is the interspecific competition. This one is the most popular competition. And then to avoid competition, one thing the species do is called resource partitioning. So they might use the same area, but they use at a different time, or they use at a different part of the same area. And then, for example, those birds, looks like they use the same species of the trees, but some use the top, some use the bottom. And then on this island, many species of the birds, they developed different beaks, so they can eat different food, although they share the same space. And then predators and carnivores, I think you guys know about this part. So one thing we want you to pay attention is how the prey to avoid being eaten, or the predator, how they try to get their food easily. So they have different strategies, and sometimes they use the same strategy. Okay, so for prey, they try to camouflage to hide, or they have some chemical warfare to spray if they cannot run fast, or they show some warning colors to say, yeah, don't come near to me, or they mimic cry some other very powerful species. And then sometimes they have behavior strategies like the bluefish, they puff up, or the peacock, they spread their wings to scare their predator. And then sometimes they just, with the structure protection, such as they have heavy shells they can hide inside. And then the same thing happened to the predator. the predator can do the same thing. They can camouflage, wait for their prey. They can use chemical warfare to numb or kill their predator. They also can have deceptive looks. They might look like they are bigger than they actually be. So those are strategies they use to get their prey. And then another thing is happening is when you look at predator and the prey species as a pair, sometimes you see seems like they are evaluated or they are evolve in the same direction. For example, if one of the species change, or the predator, and then the prey started to change something too, not because the prey caused that, but in the middle is because of natural selection. For example, the pair between bats and moth. So you know bats, they try to get their food by echolocation. However, the moths, they also developed some very sensitive hearing capacity. So when the bats nearby, they sense that, they can run away. So you need to know the definition of co-evolution. And then parasitism, we have learned before, and then mutualism and commensalism. Okay. And then now we are looking at section 2. How do communities and ecosystems respond to changing environmental conditions? You know, the environment constantly change. So the ecosystem, they must have some way to respond to those changes. This process we call ecological succession. So this definition is important. So ecological succession is the normal gradual change in species composition in a given area. So there are two succession. So you need to know. The first one is primary succession. So this succession, the condition is this one happens at lifeless areas. And then sometimes you would say, how do I know there's no life there? One sign is if there's no soil, then you pretty much can say there's no life there. Okay, like you have a cooled lava area, like after a volcano. Okay, so in lifeless area, the gradual establishment of communities of different species, this one is called primary succession. But on the other hand, if you have an area, somehow they are destroyed, but there's a lot of other species left over, have soil there, that process, that recovery process is called secondary succession. So areas of environmental disturbance, examples of natural ecological restoration. You already have something to restore, okay, not start from ground zero. So those two definitions, primary succession and secondary succession, you need to know. So this diagram shows you a process of a primary ecological succession. So how do I know it is primary? Because this one starting on bare rock, exposed by a retreating glacier on Isle Royale in Michigan. Or this part could be after a volcanic eruption. Okay, so start from no life at all, and then lichens, mosses started to grow, and then eventually they make more soil, then small herbs can grow, and then eventually you would have a mature forest. So this process is a primary ecological succession. On this diagram, you start with a abandoned farm. So you don't have all the crops you need, but something living there. And then gradually annual seed growing, and then perennial growing, and then shrubs, small trees, eventually mature trees. So this process is called ecological restoration, and then also called secondary ecological succession. So one question you might see in your answering of the chapter question is explain why ecological succession is an important ecosystem service. This is because number one, this process increases biodiversity in ecosystems with increases of species richness and interactions among the species. Number 2, such interaction in turn enhance sustainability by promoting population control and by increasing the complexity of food chain, energy flow, and nutrient cycling, thus making that ecosystem more sustainable than a simple ecosystem. And then during the process of succession, some situation help, some situation inhibit. So we are going to see those factors. Number 1 is called facilitation. So this one describes one set of species makes an area suitable for species with different niche requirements and often less suitable for themselves, such as you saw the diagram of primary ecological succession. You started with lichens and mosses, and then gradually they produce soil which is not good for them, but good for little herb, grass, and shrubs. So they help to facilitate the future species to grow. On the other hand, you have inhibition. So some species hinder the establishment and growth of other species. For example, the needles dropped from some pine trees make the soil too acidic to grow anything else. So this one inhibit other species to grow. And then the third one is called tolerance. So this one describes some of the species they are sort of a peacemaker. They do not fight with anything, but they're looking for opportunity to thrive. Such as some of the plants, they just try to survive in those shady area. Other species don't like to grow. So either one, those 3 scenarios work together in the process of ecological succession. And then one part was long time ago, the traditional view about ecological succession is we think we are able to predict where they are going. And then we think to a certain degree, they would balance with nature and then no change anymore. But however, the current view, the updated view, is we realize the ecosystem is ever-changing mosaic of patches of vegetations in different stages of succession. So basically, this one mentioning the ecosystem are going through constant ecological succession. And then sometimes the direction they are going, we are not able to predict because sometimes the environmental change is also out of our normal view. Okay, so just remember the ecological succession is a ever-changing, updating to adapt to the environment change. And then if we're looking at the ecosystem, look at their reaction to the change, you can see 2 ways. And then one is called inertia. The other one is called resilience. Okay, so inertia is, this one is pretty much persistence. So they kind of resist to change. And then resilience is on the other way, is this one is they are easily to change, but they also easily to restore where they are. Okay, that's 2. And then so far we don't see an ecosystem have both of them. They either on the side of inertia or on the side resilience. So if you look at the tropical rainforest, they have a higher species riches, and then they have a higher inertia. So that means they are not easily changed with the environment. They are very resistant. However, once something happened with a big forest fire, and then they are not able to come back quickly because they don't have much nutrients in their soil at all. But on the other hand, if you look at the grassland, this seems like not much to resist. They easily catch fire. But after the fire, you know what? They come back quickly because they have a lot of nutrients in their grassroot. So understand the 2 difference, inertia, not able to change much, or resistance is easy to come back once they are changed.